With the summit of Asia-Pacific countries in Singapore, we now turn to Victor Sumsky, a political analyst from the Institute of World Economy and International Relations, who's joining us to discuss the issues raised by the world leaders. Mr. Sumsky, thank you very much indeed for joining us. So, in his speech, President Medvedev has joined a call for the Chinese leader, Hu Jintao, to abandon protectionism. What needs to be done in this area?
Everybody today is condemning protectionism and praising free trade, and this is actually part of global political correctness. But everybody is still practicing protectionism, and probably this will remain for the period of the crisis. As far as China is concerned, it is obviously unhappy with attempts to curb its global export drive. If we look at the Medvedev article published prior to the APEC summit, you will find there statements that basically protectionism is not the way to go in the long run, but for the crisis period, protectionist measures will have to be taken. This is not to say, of course, that Russia is not concerned by various attempts to create barriers in terms of its own dealings with in the external economic space.
Okay, apart from that, what trade barriers is Russia facing at the moment?
You know, technically and narrowly speaking, Russia, as an exporter of oil and gas, is not facing any serious trade barriers. But if we look at the problems in a wider way, of course, attempts to curb, for instance, North Stream and South Stream pipeline projects are kinds of barriers in trade, politically motivated barriers. If we take the example of General Motors denying the Magna Sberbank consortium the opportunity to get a stake in the Opel car maker, this is another example of barriers, of politically motivated barriers in external economic interactions. But of course, we may also mention what I may call self-imposed restrictions on trade, because Russia's major problem is lack of competitiveness on the international, on global markets.
From your point of view, is the end of crisis in sight? Are we seeing signs of recovery?
If we listen to what the APEC financial ministers are saying, it is not. As you know, they have declared that there is still more need to practice financial stimulation policies. Dmitry Medvedev, as well, in the article that I have already mentioned, says that the times of ordeals in the world economy are continuing.
Yeah, and do you think developing countries can have a greater role to play in the world economy?
I think they already have it. Look at the composition of G20 countries, and alongside the G8 and European Union, you have there Argentina, Brazil, China, India, Mexico, Turkey, Indonesia. So almost half of the G20 is developing countries. I think it's time to talk about a certain category of developing countries. Both China and India, in terms of their per capita GDPs, are developing countries, but their impact on global economy is already tremendous. And WTO is largely stalled in its Doha round of negotiations because of the unwillingness of developing countries to subscribe to liberalization measures on which the developed countries are insisting.
All right, thank you very much for sharing your views with us. Victor Sumsky, political analyst at the Institute of World Economy and International Relations.